Hey there, I'm Lance and I'm a gamer.
And I'm Sam and I'm a non-gamer.
And we are Love to Hate, where we try to help gamers find great games to play with non-gamers.
And today we're taking a look at Emotional Intelligence by Hawberry Games.
Emotional Intelligence is a game that is coming to Kickstarter in the very near future. And this is a social deduction game for 2 to 6 people in which you are going to be taking on a different personality, that you would find in the Myers-Briggs personality test. And you want to answer this or that questions in such a way that will convey what personality you are to the other players, because you want to get other people to guess the personality that you are, and you want to try to figure out what personality everyone else is. Let me show you how this works down below, and then we'll come back and share our thoughts on it as a gamer and non-gamer. All right, so here's Emotional Intelligence, a personality deduction game. Now, I do want to let you know everything you see in this portion of the video is prototype. The final artwork components, maybe even some of the rules may be different once it's released from the Kickstarter. And also on that note, I do want to let you know that there will be more cards involved, question cards with the actual game. The prototype copy that I was given did not have all of the cards that will be in the final game. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into this and explain to you how this social deduction party game is going to work that is based off of the Myers-Briggs personality test. If you're not familiar with that, or if you are, there are several different types of personalities, 16 different personality types that are based off of energy expression. Are you extroverted or introverted? Decision making. Are you logical or empathetic? Info processing, are you more concrete thinking or abstract? And what is your temperament? Is it volatile or is it composed? And yes, I know composed is not spelled with a K, but there was already a C used, so they had to use K. Anyhow, most people have a personality type that is composed of these 8 different attributes, and that gives you a little anagram here, the CLCK, or ELCK, excuse me, is the Chancellor, because they're extroverted, logical, concrete, and composed. And so we have 32 different personality cards. Yes, I told you there are 16 different traits. So that means there are 2 of each one in this deck. And that's kind of fun because you never know, somebody may get the same personality type that you have. Anyhow, everybody is going to be dealt one of these, and you are to look at it and keep it secret. So I am the philosopher. I am introverted, logical, abstract, and composed. And that is going to determine how I answer questions throughout the game. And if you're so inclined to do so, you might actually role play your personality throughout the course of the game, just demonstrating that type of behavior. Being an introverted person, I might act differently in a certain way. So anyhow, you're going to keep this hidden from the rest of the players. And you have question cards here and a spinner. But you don't have to use the spinner if you don't want to. You can roll the die. But this is also going to keep track of the questions that are being asked for each different type of category with the personality. So how this game works, you are going to have a choice on your turn. Everybody's going to have 3 question cards dealt to them, and question cards consist of an either-or type of question. So phone call or text, for instance, and be framed for a crime or frame someone else for your crime. Keep using Rogaine forever or shave it off. So these types of questions, and you have a choice on your turn. You can choose to use one of your questions that you have in hand, but have to rely upon rolling the die or spinning the spinner to determine what type of the personality that you're trying to figure out from people. So for instance, your energy expression. I want you to demonstrate with your question if you're extroverted or introverted. Or are you concrete or abstract? Are you volatile or composed? Or are you logical or empathetic? And so you would answer based off of the category. So for instance, phone call or text. Well, if I am trying to figure out the energy expression, somebody who is extroverted is probably going to be much more about phone calls because they're going to have the inflection with their voice. They're going to have the personality that comes out with their voice. And somebody who's introverted is much more likely going to resort to texting because I don't have to actually hear you, or I'm not going to video call you and see your face, for instance. So those are some of the things that would go into answering these types of questions. So if I'm using one of the questions from my hand, though, I don't get to pick the category. I have to roll the die to determine what I end up getting. Otherwise, I can pick the category, but I will have to draw blindly off the top of the deck, hardwood floors or carpet. Now, once you have done that, and so for instance, I rolled temperament, I would choose my question and I would place that question in front of temperament. And starting with the player on my left, they would answer the question, just simply answering the question, providing no other additional benefits. So I would simply say phone call or text. Now, other players at the table, they may add their input and say things like, really, I thought you would have picked something else, based off of some clues that they picked up throughout the course of the game. But then everybody is going to answer that question, including the person who played the card. They will answer the question as well. People are going to be taking notes, making check marks going in one direction or the other. So for instance, temperament, was that response more volatile or was it more composed? And I might write some things down here. Oh, they said phone call. And that would help me to understand which type of personality this player may have. And at a certain point, I may circle that particular letter. Yes, I know they are volatile. Now I need to try to figure out these other things. And you will redraw back up to 3 questions. You always want to make sure to have 3 questions in your hand, and it will be the next player's turn. And this will continue to go around and around and around until at some point you are going to have 2 on a particular category. At that point, once you have 2 on the categories, you can skip your turn to do what is called instigate. You can instigate another player. And basically what you're doing is you're saying, I think I know what type of personality you have, so I'm going to do my best to figure it out. At that point, every player is going to write down secretly what they think that person's personality is. So I'm going to write my guess right here in your guess. And then starting with the player to the left of the person who started the instigation, they will say what their guess is out loud to that player. And that player will tell them how many out of the 4 letters they got correct. They're not going to say which letters are correct, but they will give a number of 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 for how many letters they got correct. Then it will go to the next player and they'll say how many they got correct, or what they think their guess is, and they will tell them how many guesses or how many they got correct as well. And it will go round around the table till it gets to the instigator. Now the instigator, they get a little bit of a benefit for being the person who started the instigation. They need to get 3 or 4 of the letters correctly, but they will get double the score. So if they got 3 correct, they'll get 6 points for that. If they got all 4 correct, they'll get 8 points for that. But if they only get 2, 1, or none, then they will get nothing. All the other players, they have the option to get double the points as well, but they have to get all 4 correct or they get nothing. And they do have to declare if they're going to go all or nothing when they state their guess. Otherwise, they get 1 point for every correct letter that they have. Now, this will continue throughout the course of the game, asking more questions, adding more to the different categories until all the players have been instigated. And once you're instigated, you don't have to answer questions anymore. You do still get to ask questions and try to figure out other people's personalities. Once everybody has been instigated, you'll add up your points. And this is an example of what a score could look like at the end of the game. 20 points for this particular player here. And whoever has the most is going to be the winner. And that's how you play emotional intelligence. Let's go back up top and share our thoughts on this one. And we're back. And now we're going to share our thoughts on emotional intelligence from a gamer and non-gamer's perspective. So I'm going to start off and just get it out of the way. I'm a licensed mental health professional, licensed marriage and family therapist. So this game is already something that's near and dear to my heart. I'm very familiar with the Myers-Briggs personality test, had to take it and administer it and know all about it. So a game based off of that is going to be something that I'm already geared towards. So I'm throwing that out there. I'm a little biased towards this sort of thing. So, but you, Sam, you're not, heavily involved in that like I am.
Just live with it.
You just have to live with it, that's right. And you're a non-gamer, so you're kind of coming at it from a completely opposite angle than what I am. What do you think about this game?
It's very unique. We have never played a game like this before. I think it's a great game to get to know people. I think you really have to figure out how their thought process works when it's just a this or that question.
Yeah.
You want to ask multiple questions to kind of get a feel of where their thought process is. But I think it's a great game to, get to know people or know somebody better.
What I found interesting about this game is that it will create discussion after the fact, after the game is over, and you want to know, well, why did you say what you said? Why'd you pick taco instead of dim sum? Or why'd you pick Godzilla instead of King Kong? And people can sort of try to explain where they were coming from, and you can see the thought process, and it oftentimes might be something completely different than how your thought process was. And you can see how they got to where they were going, or maybe you don't see it and you think, oh, that's ridiculous. Why'd you say that? I think it creates good discussion, which is something that is important for a social deduction game to have. You think social deduction and werewolf or, mafia, those are the types of games that have been the classic cornerstone social deduction games. And what always really works for those games is the socialness of those games, talking it out, and the fun that comes after the game is a big part of the experience. And I think you have that with this game. Yeah. So Sam, let's talk about the complexity level of this. You being a non-gamer, that's always something very important. How complex or easy was this game to understand?
It's very easy. It's very simple. It's straightforward. The hardest part is just figuring out how the other person's brain is working with that answer. But other than that, there's no... I think you do need to reference at least I did. You need to reference the guide as far as this is what an extrovert is, this is what an introvert is. You may have an idea, but just reading the definitions of each category each time kind of helps. I
will 100% agree with that, because a lot of the questions are geared in such a way to make it not so straightforward, to muddy it up a little bit. And you can go at the question and feel like you have a good understanding of what the difference between volatile and composed is. But reading that section in the rule book where it really talks about that can help you get a better idea before you answer the question. Yeah. And it makes you feel more confident as you give your response. Yeah. So another thing about this game is that you can role play your type of personality. Now, you're not supposed to give any more than the answer to the question, but everything else outside of that can be the type of personality that you're supposed to be. So if you're very extroverted, you might be bubbly and out there. If you're more introverted, you might kind of, conceal yourself or hold back. And that's just another way to kind of beef up the social aspect with this game. So it's a really interesting experience. I'm fascinated by it. I'm glad that there is a game that is centered around this type of topic, this theme. It really works for me. I really enjoyed it. One that you would recommend playing with non-gamers?
Yeah, I definitely think this is a game that almost anybody could play. As long as you're old enough to understand the differences between the types of personalities.
Yes, yeah.
It's a simple enough game that I'm sure our kids could play it, but their minds aren't quite developed enough to understand the differences in personality. They're still
figuring out their personalities, so it's going to be a bigger task for them to understand other people's personalities. Yeah. So. But no, teenagers and on up, I think, can really have a good time with this one. So, well, there you have it. That's our thoughts on Emotional Intelligence from Hawberry Games. It is running on Kickstarter right now, so make sure to check out that Kickstarter campaign link down below in the description of this video now that you've watched it. And please leave us some comments. Let us know what you think of this game.
Make sure to like and subscribe and push that bell button so you get notifications of all our new content.
I'm Lance.
I'm Sam.
And we are Love to Hate, where we try to bridge the gap between gamers and non-gamers. We'll catch you next time.